What's going on, everybody? So we have an updated season 1 rogue leveling build for you all today, and you might notice I sound a little bit different. I did get a new microphone and I've adjusted a lot of the audio settings, so I'm happy to say we sound better today. But I have a build for you all. I'll leave a link to the spreadsheet for the level by level skill point allocation, and of course a link to the D4 builds here in order for you to check this out. Now this build, pretty simplistic and very similar to my previous build that I ran in the preseason. They really didn't actually mess around with a lot of the leveling aspects of the rogue. The main nerf to the rogue was the siphoning strikes, which drastically reduces your survivability later on in the game. And of course, they just reduce damage and survivability overall. However, with a couple of modifications to the build, I very much like the one that we got going on here. And let's dive into it a little bit more. Actually, what we got first off is only one aspect. We're only running one aspect on the build, and that is Blade Dancer's aspect. Now, the reason we're only running one is because there only is need for one aspect, and it's going to save you a lot of time if you follow the rogue leveling guide. Instead of going around the map and trying to pick up all the aspects, it's actually just better to run around with just the single aspect, Blade Dancers. It's core to the build. It is a Twisting Blades build, guys. It's just the best. It's highest kind of like damage you can come out with very minimal investment into, and the aspect is really easy to acquire, and it just gets online very, very quickly. So only a single aspect, and you're going to be able to unlock that. You do need to finish parts of the campaign to be able to unlock it, but assuming you've already done that for season 1, you're ready to go with this aspect once you unlock it in Skosglen. Then we dive into the skills here, and it's going to be a lot of the same stuff that you've seen. Running puncture for fundamental puncture. This is very, very critical, guys. Guaranteed vulnerable is still good. Even with the drastic nerfs, vulnerable is still one of the best damage amping sources in the game, because it's still a multiplicative source, okay? Do not doubt that vulnerable is bad. It's just not broken. It's still very, very good. And you could even argue it's still broken. So fundamental puncture is going to be core to the build. Running Twisting Blades. We are running the cooldown reduction version because I still prefer cooldown reduction in my build over the daze. Daze just isn't really that strong in the early game. I really, really want additional cooldown reduction on my movement abilities. Sturdy and Stutter Step here. I actually did not take any siphoning strikes. In the early game, your critical strike chance and your options are much lower already, but also now we need lucky hits as well. This means that it's very, very much reduced, and I actually really don't like siphoning strikes in the early game now, but Sturdy is a very, very good option for additional damage reduction. We have Stutter Step for just additional movement speed. This is going to help us out clear through the dungeons a lot quicker. I know I mentioned that we're not going to be critically striking all that often, but all we need to get is one every 4 seconds in order for this to be very, very solid, in order for us to move quicker. Because again, in the early game, all we care about is mainly getting through the dungeons quickly and just moving around the map quickly. Shadow Step, with the discipline, Shadow Step's going to make it so that you have it more often. Shadow Step's very core to the build because you do want the form of Unstoppable. You still will get CC'd early game. And of course, the increased movement speed after you cast it is nice. Plus dash, we want the double mobility skills for really nice access throughout the entire game. Weapon mastery, just big damage, okay? Big damage. We want to run oftentimes swords or daggers. Both of them are really, really nice. Obviously running a melee weapon, but I tend to lean towards daggers for just the slight attack speed increase. It's a little bit different than I initially suspected, but I actually like the increased attack speed overall. Then we have exploit plus malice, extra damage to healthy and injured, and extra damage to vulnerable. Any damage multiplier is just going to be excellent with this build. Then we're going to be running precision imbuement for extra critical strike with our poison imbuement. Now, one thing that's really, really core to leveling builds is you really need a big single target damaging ability, and poison imbuement is that ability. Do not mistake, the lack of shadow imbuement for a lack of AoE in this build. Blade Dancer's aspect, Twisting Blades, pull throughs, and another skill we're going to talk about later has a ton of AoE. Keep in mind that poison imbuement gets applied on an AoE when that Blade Dancer's aspect spins the Twisting Blades around, meaning that you're actually going to be applying poisons on multiple targets, making the debilitating toxins, alchemical advantage, and Deadly Venom, incredibly nice. Particularly the Alchemical Advantage. This is going to be a really nice additional attack speed bonus, and oftentimes we will get up to like 5, 6, 7% just from one singular Twisting Blades, which is why there's only 1 point into it. You could put a second point into it and get a little bit more value there. And then Debilitating Toxin is just going to give us extra damage reduction, which will actually be important now that the damage reduction has been nerfed. The Sturdy and the Debilitating Toxins are going to be pretty important in the early game, whereas beforehand you could have just not run it and be fine. Then we have Innervation, Trap Mastery, Aftermath, and Adrenaline Rush as passives. This is going to give us extra energy regeneration when we're moving. We're going to get extra energy regeneration when we lucky hits. Again, any chance to get extra energy regeneration so we can constantly cast our spells and our skills, rather, is going to be very important. Trap Mastery, this is core for extra critical strike chance against vulnerable enemies, which we will have with Puncture, plus Death Trap. Death Trap is going to be the ultimate that we're running, and then Aftermath is going to give us energy back when we cast it. The key with Death Trap is you want to pull in all the enemies so we can cast one Poison Imbued Twisting Blades and poison the entire group and move on. This is very nice. In addition to this, we're going to be running the Supreme Death Trap in order for us to reduce the cooldown. Ideally, what we're going to be doing is Twisting Blades, jumping into a group of enemies, Death Trap, Twisting Blades gets pulled back, it hits everyone, it lowers their HP, then Death Trap finishes them off, and we instantly get another Death Trap for the next group. Very solid build in that situation, and this requires 0 additional aspects for the trap, because your main damage is Twisting Blades and Poison Imbuement, and even if you don't have Death Trap, you're just not going to be able to AoE quite as well, but you can still AoE very nicely, even if you just manage your mobility skills well. As for the key passives, we're going to be running Close Quarters Combat for extra attack speed with Marksman or Cutthroat skills, so we're going to basically have a permanent 30% attack speed bonus, which is really nice, or a 10% attack speed bonus rather. And then also, while we have the attack speed bonus active, right, we're going to be getting the additional damage against crowd controls enemies and the Death Trap plus our Poison Imbuement and our Twisting Blades, all is going to get that massively increased damage when they get pulled in, which is really nice. So lots of synergies with this build. Very good single target damage, which is my focus because you're going to fight a lot of bosses. But also we want really good AoE DPS because we're going to be going through, and assuming you're doing Temple of Rot or Champion's Demise, you want to be able to one-shot the elites, but you also want to be able to one-shot big groups. And the Poison plus Death Trap combo is going to be really nice to reset those cooldowns while also giving you very good single target damage against elite monsters. This is the build that I'm going to be running for the launch. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And let me know what you think about the new season starting tomorrow. What are you doing? Are you jumping into it? Are you having some fun? I know there's a lot of backlash on it, and I agree with a lot of it. I'll have a full video on that. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see that, and I'll see you all for the next one.